Before we get started, I wanted to take a brief little dive into Unknown Dimension, which is the documentary about the whole franchise leading up to the release of Next of Kin, which they tease at the end of this. This is part of the Paramount's just blue box set. They just have a big box set which includes this, which is great. It's definitely a worthwhile addition to the collection. It is an excellent Blu-ray. I would highly recommend getting this set, mostly for this Blu-ray itself, because none of the rest of them have any actual special features outside of deleted scenes and extended cuts. But some things worth noting. I mentioned in this video how the first film came out in 2007 because according to Letterboxd it did, and technically it did. It had cinematic releases in America in 2007, but it wasn't a global release till 2009 after several re-edits, which again, highly documented here, as well as the fact that they're all highly profitable films, and as bar the fourth one, from there onwards, it started to get less and less profitable, hence they killed the franchise, and then rebooted it. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to note that this is a really good documentary. It's your classic talking heads mixed with some good footage from the films. It uses trailers of each film to bring in the next film, which is just fun to see. And it has a nice retrospective look of the series, of how the first one came to be, how the series came to be. It has a lot of like producers and actual, big wigs for the studio talking about the film. I gave it 4 stars. It's really solid, and it's nicely honest as well. They talk about the highs of the franchise and the lows, specifically the 4th one, and how they had to change things up for the 5th and 6th one, and if that did well in terms of its marketability and whatnot. Nevertheless, just wanted to chime in and say that because I know some of the details I've said are wrong, and I should have watched this before I actually watched Next of Kin. I don't know why I didn't. I just thought it came out after Next of Kin, but I was wrong. So anyway, enjoy the video, and I don't know, don't get scared. Oh no. Okay, we're talking about Paranormal Activity. Ow, my ankles. Ow, I'm getting too old for this shit. We're talking about the Paranormal Activity fucking movies. These, look at how fancy and shiny that is. Anyway, I got the Paranormal Activity set. This is the UK version, the Ultimate Chill set. Look, it's a box. It's got a haunted figure. It's got a doorknob? No, it's just a security camera. That's a stupid image. Why is there a security camera? Like, I don't even know if that is a security camera. Anyway, it also has another image on the back. I'm pretty sure it's just the little pentagram-ish thingy that they use to symbolize the demon stuff. Plus, obviously, all the discs feature a hand. There are several films in the set. Paranormal Activity, Paranormal Activity 2, Paranormal Activity 3, Paranormal Activity 4, Paranormal Activity The Marked Ones, Paranormal Activity Ghost Dimension, Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, and Unknown Dimension, which is a documentary about the making of the films. So I'm going to cover all of these films and every single plot beat that they... No, I'm not going to fucking do that. I'm just going to talk about if I like them or not. Does it matter? I mean, so far, as of recording this clip, I've seen the first 5 of them. I had only seen 3 of them before yesterday. I had never seen 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. I don't even know what happens in the Ghost Dimension, and I vaguely know what happens in Next of Kin. I've seen some other videos talking about them. But of course, we're looking at my thoughts, my theories, my explanations. What do I think, at least for the bulk 5? Currently, the rest will be in the other parts of the video. Timestamps down below, and in video, and the end of the video will have a ranked list of what my favorite to least favorite of these films are. Crazy. I can do that. Magic. Anyway, we of course start with Paranormal Activity from 2007. Man, the jump between Paranormal Activity 1 and 2 in terms of length, years, crazy. So this is the classic, found footage, very cheaply made, made a cajillion dollars at the box office kind of thing, became an overnight sensation, a global sensation. The adverts, I still remember, were people getting scared in the theater, and they were using that as their ad campaign, and it was fucking great. And guess who didn't watch them ever in cinema? Me. Me, because I was a child and I never fucking watched them ever until I did, and that was a bad idea. So basically, when I got into watching them was around the time that the second and third one had come out. The 2010, 2011 period, I think it was. 2010, 2011 period. With the fourth one coming out, of course, in... I'm scrolling through my list on Letterboxd for my reviews, 2012, and the fifth one coming out in 2014, and then the others coming out when they came out. I think they all came out. Ghost Dimension was 2015, and Next of Kin was 2021. Noteworthy, I've watched all of these to the best of my ability in their extended editions. I actually watched Paranormal Activity in its alternate cut because I wanted to. It turns out probably not really worthwhile because there's a special feature on the Blu-ray. You can watch the alternate ending where Katie kills herself instead of throwing Mika at the camera. Do I think that that's a better ending? Yes. Do I think it's a more effective ending for her to throw Mika at the camera for a cheap jump scare and then to just jump at the camera? Sure. It allows the story at least to continue because that's what it did with the second and third film, whatever. It's such a successive storyline that it literally cannot survive without the first film's ending and the first film's impact. Obviously, I've seen the original cut, actually, the original ending of it as well, which was on YouTube for some reason, not on the Blu-ray special features, and it's like 7 minutes long, and it's basically Katie killing Mika, sitting in the bedroom for like 2 days straight, and then the cops coming in, and she has a knife, so they shoot her dead, and that's the end of story. And it's like, okay, cool, what a waste of time. I can see why they cut it down. Holy crap. But still, this was, huge sensation of the first film. I watched them probably, again, like I said, probably 2011 period. I had the Blu-ray steelbook of the first film. My brother did the smart decision of buying that. It wasn't a smart decision, bad idea. I still have it up there, actually. One of the first ever steelbooks we ever bought, and it is very rusty. Literally, it's made of metal. It's fucking rusted. Who'd have thought it? And so it was a film that fucking petrified us. It made you sleep with your light on because I was a child. Hi, I'm 26. And it was just a nightmare to watch these films. It was always the kind of thing where, as brothers, I got two brothers, my older brother, my younger brother, our dad would always be showing us horror films. He introduced us to Alien and The American Werewolf in London and a whole bunch of other stuff. And we got Paranormal Activity because it's like, hey, the second and third film, I think, were out by that stage. And it was like, we got to watch these because they're scary and everyone's talking about them, whatever. So we didn't have the big hype for the first one because I was like 9 when it came out. I don't remember it coming out, to be completely honest with you. I just remember the second and third one coming out because of the ad campaigns and how much of a big thing they were. Maybe we had bought the steelbook before the second and third one. I don't fucking remember. It was so long ago. I don't remember. It was over 15 years ago, alright? Nevertheless, we watched the first one, scares the bejesus out of me and my brothers, sleepless nights ensued. My dad is like, how the fuck is this scary? It's just an invisible thing. It's clearly like strings and shit or whatever, modern techniques to just have the door move by itself, a fake shadow on the floor because of CGI. All these kind of effects that have just enough realism to them, but just enough you could easily fake this kind of deal, but because of the way that they're shot, it adds a bit of realism to it. I'm pretty sure we pirated the second and third films because, we were teenagers. Of course we pirated the second and third films. What does it matter? They made a fuck ton at the box office anyway. We weren't going to go out to the cinemas and watch them. Are you kidding me? We were kids. It wasn't going to happen. Never had to experience that. Thank God I never did. And so hence the, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, whatever the fuck, all the rest of them I had never seen until this viewing experience, and it's been quite something. So at least with the original trilogy, very simple setup. Actually, the original 4, let's be honest, very simple setup. Someone has a camera, demon possession, ghostly stuff, Paranormal Activity. It's not even ghosts, it's a fucking demon the whole time. Who'd have thought it? Something that's not established until basically the third film. There's enough inklings of it throughout the first and second films, enough tiny little ball drops, especially in the second one where one of the characters is actually researching it. She's my favourite character. I have a favourite character in the series. Who would have thought it? I believe her name is Allie. She's the daughter of the husband in the second film. Because the Katie in the first film, Katie and Mika, Katie's sister, marries the guy and has a son, Hunter. So Allie is her stepdaughter. We love Allie in this channel. Anyway, she comes back in the fifth one. 10 out of 10. She's there for one scene. She's like, hey, by the way, your friend's probably being possessed by a demon. Good luck with that. Bye. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Anyway, really love how they just do that. They just will bring characters back because they can. These are all in the same continuity, at least. So far, I'm really debating if Ghost Dimension is, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But at least the first 5 are in the same continuity. You even think that the 5th one wouldn't be the marked ones, but then it is. Anyway, Paranormal Activity, first one. We all know the get-up, one camera set up, filming the bedroom at nighttime. Katie keeps getting possessed and stuff, keeps getting dragged down the hall, loud noises, whatever. The most interesting scene is where they leave the camera in the lounge room and the demon sets fire to the fucking Ouija board. And that's about it. Regular jump scares ensue, and yeah, it's fine. It's very of its time, but also very well executed for such a cheap film. And I don't say cheap because it's cheap and tacky, even though you could easily consider it that. A lot of people do. But it is a really interesting, masterful use of horror with a very basic and, again, cheap because of the design setup. One camera in a bedroom, filming all night long. Let's see what happens. The original tagline was, what happens when you sleep? Oh, you get possessed by a demon, I guess. So it's a classic example. We all know what the fucking series is about because it's just that until it isn't. But for the most part, at least the first 4 films, it's basically people setting up cameras in their house and filming what they think of paranormal activity. They got to capture something on footage. The second film upped the ante. The first film gave it 3 stars. Pretty enjoyable. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I enjoy the characters. I actually do like Mika and Katie, because their relationship is really interesting, seeing how their relationship just breaks down over the course of the film. People hate Mika because he's a fucking idiot. He buys a camera instead of going to therapy. He, instead of helping his girlfriend out and, trying to exorcise a demon or whatever, he just figures, hey, let's just fucking film it. Won't that be great? Let's, also not review the footage because that would be a waste of time. Also, I'm in the stocks. If this demon kills me, I'm fucked, but if it doesn't, I'm fucked anyway. So, 2007 was a hell of a time. Nevertheless, enjoyable enough film. I like it. Moving on to the second one. Also gave it 3 stars. I like it more. I think it utilizes a lot more with its usage of multiple camera angles, multiple camera positions. The daughter, again, the stepdaughter, Allie, uses a camcorder at one stage and filmed a couple of things through that. Most of it is set up from the proposition of there was a break-in in their very large, expensive house. I wonder if social commentary is a part of these films. Cough, cough. A bunch of white people happen to be rich. I wonder why. I like how it becomes like a plot point. Why are they suddenly rich? Why are they just rich in general? Oh, it's because demons and covens and stuff. I love it. It's great. It's like, let's just, we get rich, and you get my firstborn son. What's that? I have to wait 3 generations for the firstborn son? This demon's gonna be pissed. Anyway, lore is great. These films have some insane lore. It's kind of realistically very simplistic, but at the same time, really nicely executed. Except for the fact that you have to wait for the 5th one for the lore to really kick in, and it kicks in hard, because the 4th one doesn't do shit. Fuck the 4th movie. Anyway, 3rd movie, again, just multiple different cameras because they set up a whole home security system. Allie's the only one who's like, hey, let's maybe look at some of these camera footage because I think something weird's going on. Weird pots and pans are falling for no reason. Shit's exploding. The dog's going crazy. The baby's crying all the fucking time. Something's going on. A lot of heavy bass and everything's shaking. You can tell when there's going to be a jump scare because the whole entire room gets shaky. That's how much they've amplified the bass in this movie, which isn't a bad thing, but it becomes very noticeable once you realize, hey, they kind of do that a lot in these films. But, it's fine. The characters are not as interesting as in the first film. Weirdly, I guess. I mean, again, the father is very gaslighty. The mother is just kind of annoying. The daughter I like. The dog, man, that dog should have had a better life. It didn't die, but it's like, almost did. Nevertheless. Yeah, I feel like there's less to say about this one. Like, it came out 3 years later, and it fucking blew the top off of everything, because they're like, hey, what if Katie had a sister, and the reason why the demon was at her place was because the demon was actually after her? Is it bad that I can't? I think it's Christy, Katie and Christy. I can never remember Christy's name. Even though she's just as important to the plot, realistically. Not kind of as important, but she's in, like, 3 of these movies. I think there's a scene of her in the first film, if I'm not mistaken. I probably am, because I know that the second one has a bunch of flashbacks with Katie in it. And it's like, this is Katie and Mika, like 30 days before Mika dies and Katie goes missing. All that kind of stuff. And it's all ramping up to adjacent to the events of the first film, which is also really fun that, like, you could just place it in the events of the first film at the same time, because they're both set in 2006, 2007 period. Which is great. I love how they do that. They just build it up, and it works that way. It works really nicely. It builds more of their characters. You understand the family a bit more. There's obviously something more behind the scenes that you don't know about, and that you won't really learn till the next film, because this is basically the same creative team working on all of these, which is great. Mostly the same creative team, a lot of the same directors, sometimes the same writers, but I'm pretty sure the guy who originally created it has hardly worked on most of them outside of, like, producing them. Because Christopher Landon did a bunch of them. Christopher Landon, who directed the fifth one, who also wrote the second, third, fourth, and fifth films. First film is Oren Peli, who directed the first film, and he also did a bunch of Insidious films, or he at least produced a lot of them. And he just wrote and casted and costume designed and was the editor and the cinematographer for the first Paranormal Activity film, and the set decorator, holy shit. And he also was the original writer for the fourth film. That's crazy. But yeah, he produced all the rest of them. And second film, directed by Todd Williams, who didn't do any more of the films, and he basically was an in-and-out kind of job. I guess a pay is a pay. The third film, Ariel Schulman and Henry Joost, both of whom directed and I think co-wrote Paranormal Activity 4 and 3 and 4 together. And we'll talk about the others when we get to them later, but yes, then the marked ones, of course. But Paranormal Activity 2, yeah. It basically does everything that the same film does, but just with a bit more oomph to it. I think it's got a lot more iconic moments, because instead of just waiting with the dread of the eventual jump scare, it's a lot more stuff happening. The demon walks out of the room a lot more times, hits chandeliers, drags the woman down the stairs. A lot of different things happen, comes after the dog, comes after the baby, but tries to play with it rather than killing it or anything, so clearly it's there for the baby. You have the scene that connects it with the first film. There's all that kind of stuff, and then, of course, the end-all eventual final scene ties the two together perfectly. So I won't really spoil any big plot details if you're interested. But then you get to the third film. Third film, prequel, 2011. It's Katie and Christy and their little girls. Christy happens to be best friends of Toby. Toby is her imaginary friend. Yeah, lo and behold, the demon is called Toby, and they never really mention that again in, like, any of the films at all. And I think they do in the Next of Kin, but I'm pretty sure it's meant to be a different demon in that film. I feel pretty sure it's meant to be a different continuity. Nevertheless, yeah, this one's set in the 80s. The stepdad is a wedding photographer, so he has video cameras that he sets up around the place because he's suspecting that there's something a bit weird about the household. After her birthday scene, Christy talking to herself, and she claims to have a imaginary friend. And of course, the imaginary friend happens to be a demon who has a little cubby hole and whatever. The most normal people in this movie are, of course, the assistant to the stepdad and the babysitter, both of whom interact with the demon and both decide, I'm never coming back. And they never do. Like, the babysitter never mentions it. She just acts completely normal after a very fucked up night and then just runs away. And she's like, just after her shift is done, she's like, cool, I'm done, goodbye, see you next time. Actually, she doesn't even say next time, she just says bye, and she fucks off. And then the guy looks at the footage and is like, oh shit, that explains why she was so weird. Whereas, of course, his assistant experiences a really fucked up paranormal activity with one of the daughters whilst taking care of the oldest daughter, Katie. Actually, wasn't it? Yeah, no, Katie was the oldest daughter. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, yeah, and of course, he ends up leaving too. He's fine. They're all fine, probably. I like this one a lot in the series because it does again what the first two had done, but it gives you kids, which makes it a bit more terrifying. Surprisingly good kid actors too, which is nice. It's really nicely directed, really interestingly written as well. I like how they have like updated video styles. Even the guy's like, oh, I'm going to do this thing where the camera's going to pan left and right. You get a lot of obvious setups like that where, oh, something's going to be on that side of the camera's going to pan, it's going to go back, that thing is going to vanish, and then jump scare ensues or something. They even do that with the babysitter. She actually jump scares the camera at one stage. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff that it plays with. I think it's nicely directed. I think it's nicely handled in contrast to the first two. The first two very much being very, very similar. This one being like, oh, it's the same, but it's in the past, so it's a bit creepier. And of course, the final act, the final 15 minutes, fucking balls to the wall crazy, which is better. It's always better when the endings are insane, but logically insane. When they get to that position in the narrative is logical and everything works better and it pays off well, and there we go. Everything full circle gets back to the start. My main criticism of this film is the fact that it's in HD. It shouldn't be. This should have been made on tape. Like, if they were going to go completely authentic to the actual 80s time period, which they obviously try to do with set dress and everything, not hard when you've got, like, only 2 locations for your fucking setting, but at the same time, it shouldn't have been in HD, it shouldn't have been a 1080p film, it should have been, I mean, maybe sure 1080p for, like, how we viewed it, but it should have been made on film in, like, 480p, not even whatever standard definition they use for like old TVs, like the old tapes that they would have used in the 80s and 90s. That's what it should have been filmed on that. It would have been creepier if it had been filmed like that. I think it would have worked better. Maybe even if they filmed it in HD, but then they just added like a filter on top after the fact, which would have been very on the nose and stupid. But it probably would have been given the creepier effect. Again, you add this staticky effect to all the footage, and it just gives it something else, a brand new essence. But they didn't do that, and I feel like that's a real big misstep in just the technology of the film. Like, because these films are built on this technology of just being able to record everything, and I don't like how they don't pull through of it in the third film. Nevertheless, then you get the fourth film, and that film mostly films things from a fucking laptop camera. I don't like the fourth one. I gave it 2 stars. Don't like it that much. Catherine Newton I enjoy, but when most of the start of the film is her best friend trying to look at her tits through a goddamn camera, it's a bit weird. I'm a grown adult. I don't want to be watching some teenagers get naked onto a camera. I understand these movies are basically for teenage audiences because it scares them easier. I was one of them. But at the same time, I don't exactly need to experience that. And that's kind of where the film kind of starts to fall apart, because the characters are not very interesting. They have a neighbor who's clearly Katie with Hunter, but something is off about that, again, for no reason. I'm not going to go into the twists, so I'm not going to tell you what the ending is, even though I don't like the ending either. I think it's far too abrupt and stupid, and very obviously done it with a professional in terms of the camera work, because it's a kind of film where the doors are open if it's filmed on a laptop camera, and the doors are closed if it's filmed on a camcorder, because then you get the creepiness of someone trying to open the door and maybe there's a demon on the other side. But at least if it's on a laptop camera, you can always see in the background to some degree, and that's what's meant to make it creepier. This is the film that introduces the Xbox Kinect as a plot device. It uses its night vision, which puts green dots on everything so it can see things move, which allows you to see the demon, who's just a kid. The demon is a fucking kid. Of course the demon looks like a child. Would that make more sense? It's replicating what Hunter is meant to look like, or whatever the kids are meant to look like, so they can be friends better. But then it seems like there's maybe a bit more to it, because there's also one that seems to be an invisible entity that flies around the camera occasionally, that the kids also talk to. But then how is there a kid who looks like a kid as a demon ghost thing, and then there's also one that they're talking to? Which one is the one that's the bad one? Which one is Toby? What's going on? Is it still Toby? It basically is, but what is it? The film doesn't progress any real lore or plot stuff like at all. It just gives you the possibility that the coven is really, really big, and that's kind of about it. It's very lackluster for what it is. Even the scares, a lot of the stuff happens during the day, which is very boring. You know, I guess, sure, by this stage the nighttime stuff is run of the mill, it's boring, but at the same time it's what people want, and I'm like still expecting more of it. So then when I get it during the day, I'm like, well, it's not as scary when you can just walk outside and it's daytime. I mean, I know the demon can fucking follow you, but it's still just a bit stupid. So it doesn't really do much for me in terms of as a film. The characters aren't interesting. Just none of the environment works for me. It goes through the same fucking beats. The most interesting part is basically when Catherine Newton's character gets trapped in the goddamn garage with the car running and she can't get out and she almost chokes to death. And instead of calling her friend on the laptop, a guy who seems to be able to get to her place lickety-split, who she was on a call with just prior, she instead decides to just keep coughing and coughing and coughing until she eventually breaks the window, gets into the car, and pulls it backwards out of the garage, which allows for the main plot beat to happen. She's not there with her dad when the shit starts to hit the fan, you know, which causes most of the other characters to die, and then, of course, you get to the end of it. Does it matter? No, not really. Do I think the deaths are funny? I think they're hilarious. I think that one guy sitting at a laptop, Katie just standing behind him, snaps his neck. I love it. It's so stupid. Nevertheless, that's the main plot of those ones. Then you get to the marked ones, and the marked ones so far is my favorite of the series because it is just really inventive and different in its approach. It goes for these kids graduating, they're 18 now, they can do whatever they want to some degree, they've got their future ahead of them, and they get camcorders. They're just filming shit because they can. Shits and gigs. They're kids filming shit. One of them happens to maybe interact with some kind of demonic force, gives him some kind of superpowers, so what becomes a, you know, teenage buddy film evolves into creepy kind of action supernatural horror film with a bit of a superhero edge as it slowly divulges more into the supernatural until the final act kicks in where that character is almost completely possessed by a demon for whatever reason. Obviously it's explained in the film, and you get the most insane fucking final 15 minutes that any of these films have. And now this film is the only one that's unique in the fact that it's all shot on handheld cameras. None of it is like security cameras, none of it is nighttime vision or anything. There's really a scene that is actually like, none of it replicates the original four of having just a still camera set up with creepy footage, you know, playing and a ghost fucking around or whatever. That rarely ever happens, and when it does, it's basically the guy's left the camcorder somewhere and there happens to be an entity in the distance, or you expect something to happen but something else happens. They actually have setups and payoffs that are very different. You expect the demon to attack a girl in a room, and instead someone comes out of the fucking floor. It's very unexpected in certain elements, and I really like that. The characters are really interesting. You got a good group dynamic. They feel realistic to a degree. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Again, the film builds lore like crazy. Like, oh my god, people hated the fourth one because it was boring and didn't do anything new. How about let's actually do something interesting and new? And apparently people hated it. It's crazy looking at the reviews and seeing that people fucking hated this movie. But people hate this series to begin with, like, because they think it's cheap jump scare fodder. And it is. But there is an essence to these films that makes them very interesting to watch. You know, there's a creepiness that I get from watching this. I still feel creeped out when I'm like home by myself, knowing that none of this shit's real, but it's still creepy, you know? And it just gives a shiver down my spine. And now I could just be tired. That could just be the effect that it's having on me right now. But nevertheless, this film really fucking packs a punch, especially in that final act. It goes into full fucking horror territory. And luckily, maybe not luckily, I wasn't uber scared by it, probably because suddenly everyone was home now and I had Olivia Rodrigo in one fucking room, someone else in the other talking loudly. It disrupted the whole fucking flow, but at least on a cinematic property, seeing it all take place, that last section with the coven, someone brings a shotgun to a fucking coven, great idea. There's a lot of fun moments in it, and the whole final scene really wraps up the narrative really fucking well. So realistically, this film could easily be the final detail of these films, because it literally brings it all full circle. And if you don't know what I mean by that because you haven't watched it, I highly recommend watching it. But if you have seen it, you know what I mean. This shit comes full circle in such a way that is vaguely set up earlier, which I really like. Just like a very touch and go, oh, let's mention this one thing and then carry on and not bring it up again. And then it just happens. They don't pay it off by someone doing an action. It's clearly just, let's go this way, and that's where they end up. I like how this film actually has the main character be, hey, this is what happens when you're 18 and you've been set up from birth to be possessed by a demon, and this is what happens, you know? It's paying off everything that was set up at the start of the film, where, at the start of the series, where Katie's family is meant to be, oh, they're meant to have a male heir in their family, and that male heir becomes, you know, possessed by some demon or whatever. It becomes a vessel, and that's meant to be a thing. Why? They don't really know. I don't really know. I've watched 5 of these movies now and I still don't really know why they're doing it, but, you know, hey, we all in this coven are promising these demons that we'll give them our firstborn sons if they make us incredibly rich or something. So, again, really interesting commentary, because this guy in these films, these guys are Spanish. They're Latino. They're not, and Latina, they're not white people. So they live in like much smaller areas, in like like not cul-de-sacs, in like a building that has multiple rooms. I don't even remember, like an apartment building. They live in their own complex with other families, you know? And the fact that still happens, yet somewhere it's like it's become a, instead of it being, oh, the older part of the families have done it for riches and whatever, but the younger parts are just doing it to continue this thing. I don't know, because it's like really interesting to kind of understand it. Like, why is this guy, you know, who is 18 now, whose mother died in childbirth, who exactly is meant to be, you know, profiting off of the possession? Because the person who seems to be profiting off of it dies very early in the movie. So, and she seems to be doing it for other people, where it's like maybe she's just an extension of the cult who's just, you know, promising other demons, hey, you can have this kid, you can have that kid, you can have that kid, I'm just going to kill all their mothers. And when they're 18, they're all yours. What do I get out of it? I don't know, because one of those kids, after realizing what's going on, kills her, and that's what sets off the events of the 5th movie. And you're seeing the end of that guy's story and the start of this guy's story, and how they end up becoming on the same path, and how they have 2 very different endings. Of all of these, it's the one that's actually the best film. It gives you characters that are interesting, sure, first person found footage perspective alone, still going for a horror filmy vibe, but it gives you, each act is a distinct different thing. It shows this kind of rise and fall of this character. It's really interesting how this film develops its characters and its world, and introduces a broader expanse to the world of Paranormal Activity, while still showing how it's all still connected to this one core thing throughout, you know, the original 3 films. They were realistically the original 4 films. You know, that was just one family, but there are more, and this film emphasizes that, and I really like that detail. But of course, let's talk about the Ghost Dimension. Paranormal Activity 5? 6. 6. The Ghost Dimension. This one's tricky. I didn't dislike it as much as everyone else seems to do. Like, I've looked on most critical websites and even Letterboxd, and the majority of people seem to hate this one. I guess I went into it with the lowest of expectations, because I very much expected it to be exactly like the first couple, of just them filming their household at nighttime, there's demon stuff, and nothing really happens until the very end. But at the same time, this film still utilizes that premise and definitely does something different to the marked ones, which I don't love. I much prefer the marked ones in terms of characters and story. But this one does better than the fucking fourth film, and I kind of think it's realistically the most inventive of the series for doing the exact same thing of the first four films, where marked ones is definitely the most interesting narratively and with its camera work and just the idea in general. This one is like, oh, so there's a new family, we're going through the exact same shit. Gil is getting followed by Toby, and they found the camera and all the VHS tapes from the third film, the prequel, and they're looking for all that. Some of it's reflecting with current day stuff. They're watching scenes with the daughters, which clearly they look a couple of years older. Obviously, they've gone with the youngest daughter because she looks the youngest, whereas the older daughter who played Katie does not seem... Well, she obviously seems like 5 years older than what she was in the prequels, because those scenes are still set in 1988. I mean, it's, at the same time, they have this demon cult thing, and this guy's like, oh, Katie, you're the strong one, you're going to help your sister Christy, even though Christy gets fucking killed in the second one, LeMayo. But Christy's obviously the one who can connect with Toby and whatever, and they establish it's happened throughout her whole family, her whole lineage, and the whole point of this movie is to bring Toby into the real world. And they establish that, oh, they've used time travel from the previous film to bring Hunter back in time. They've got footage of him from the 80s, even though he wasn't born till obviously well after the 80s, quote-unquote 2006, which I now realize is like a big deal, because this film emphasizes that their daughter in this movie was also born in 2006. Coincidentally, the 6th day of the 6th month of the 6th year of the new decade. Yeah, they're doing a 666 thing. Yeah, it's interesting to some degree because this is the same house from the third film. All these stuff become revelations in the narrative. Like, this is the one that has the strongest narrative ties to the rest of them. Doesn't have modern day Katie. Don't know where she is after the fourth film. Actually, was she even in the fifth film? Yeah, I can't remember her being in the marked ones at all. Which isn't great. I liked the ones where Katie was in it. She probably was. No, she was. She was because she was in the time travel part, but not her in the modern day. It was her in the 2006. There's pros and cons of this one. The pros are, if you love the first four for their narrative style, like the setting up cameras, chandeliers moving, things that go bump in the night, then you're going to get that. If you didn't like the marked ones because it went away from the formula, you'll like this one because it goes back to the formula. But this one also is like, hey, we've got a bigger budget now, we're going to use CGI to bring this demon into the flesh. So they use the old camera, which for once actually has the old, like, grainy aesthetic. Again, still in a widescreen aspect ratio instead of 4:3 like it should have been. But at the same time, they utilize that camcorder. They say, like, oh, it's actually been built different and all this kind of stuff, so it can actually see other things, even though, again, that wasn't established in the third film. Clearly, they want the gimmick for this one. And the gimmick, I remember, for the advertising on this one is you finally get to see the demon. And you do. It's a weird black blobby thing. Initially, it looks like particles from a different dimension, which I think is just weird temporal gateways, which just fluctuate and move throughout the house. Potentially the demon before it becomes a form, and then eventually you get a night one, like 40 minutes into the movie, and we're back on that regular beat of, hey, there's a bunch of cameras set up, one of them can see the demon, one of them can't, so one of them sees things moving, one of them sees the demon as a black blob creature thingy, Eventually, it gains a face and starts attacking the characters. It does a lot of swooping against the camera because, you know, the cliche jump scare of weird, shadowy black thing jumps across the screen, or it has nothing happening and then a hard cuts to someone picking up a camera or making a loud noise in the cut to make a jump scare, which I fucking hate those ones. Mostly because there's no setup for it, it just happens. And that's the worst kind. Like, at least the setups of and payoffs being the, you know, oh, we're expecting a jump scare and then a black shadowy thing jumps across the camera is cheap and stupid, but at least the setup and payoff is there. I guess you'd probably want the more unexpected scares, but in this franchise, they're all expected. You get the bassiness and everything. The surround sound fucking kicks in. Like, they go heavy, especially in the back half of the movie where they bring in a priest, because they're like, okay, we've had weeks of footage of this demon thing, we need to exorcise it, so they do that, even though you think, okay, clearly these characters are stupid, they're filming everything, they've got an open landscape house, they should just get the fuck out of there. But it doesn't matter, because the one time they do, and they stay 6 miles away in a hotel, their daughter Layla somehow manages to make her way back to the house, just when there happens to be people there filming. Nevertheless, they end up just being like, fuck it, let's get a priest. And the priest had already been bitten by Layla, but nevertheless, a girl who had gone to the ghost dimension, you see the poster, the wall, it opens up, she walks in, and then she comes back out. Well, the power goes off because there's a weird sonic boom, and all the family are looking for her because it's the mother, the father, and the uncle, because the uncle is just there. They don't really utilize the story of him being recently broken up with and trying to flirt with the other girl, because then it just becomes, we got to find this demon. And then just his whole story is just nothing. He's not really relevant for the rest of the film. He's just there. Much like that other girl. They really drop all the storylines like halfway through. They're like, nah, fuck it. We've had enough setup. Let's just sidetrack it all. Hunt for the demon, whatever. So the ghost dimension per se is very much a... It's a cool title, but again, it's not really meant to be ghosts, because it's a demon. This has been established for several films now, that this ain't a ghost dimension unless ghosts are also demons, which I'm like, nah, this is a portal to hell. You know, she went into this portal, she came back, nothing really changes. I don't know why they do it. There's a lot of stuff like that where it has iconic imagery, if you were to pin it as iconic, and it doesn't do anything with it. Again, they have all this video footage of this demon blob thing, and they have a freeze frame of it having a face, and they still do nothing with it. Like, at least in the previous film, the kids filmed this stuff of the guy seemingly having superpowers and uploaded it to YouTube only for people to say, oh, it's all fake. And that film at least had a narrative. This one, it's basically just enough fodder until you get to the final act, where they get the priest back to exorcise the girl. They put a pentagram thing in the middle of the floor. The demon starts shaking the whole room, and again, it really great surround sound stuff. Thank God I didn't watch it last night with family home. That would have annoyed the shit out of me, because I'm like, this is getting too loud now, outside of the big loud bangs from all the jump scares. And they exorcise the demon. It becomes a formed creature, which is interesting. Again, a lot of special effects to have a weird pipe of, like, of clouds and stuff. A lot of CGI blobs. The creature is real, which is interesting. It's nice to see it to some degree. But again, depends if you really wanted to see the demon to begin with. But fuck it, we're fucking 6 movies into this franchise. Who cares? Just do it. And they obviously know that they're going to do it because they've got nothing better to do, because it proceeds to kill the priest. Once they think it's been exorcised, it somehow possesses one of the girls, who throws up bile, I think it is, which is acidic, kills the brother, and then the parents run upstairs because the daughter's gone missing. They go to her room, their father gets killed because the demon just shoves its hand through his chest for no reason, and then the mother goes through the portal, winds up back in time to I'd probably say the late 80s, again with Christy and whatever, like their old parents' house. It's like not even the grandma's house, it's literally just that house, but 30 years earlier or something. And then they just find out that it's too late. Toby's real. They had used the blood of Hunter, who they had brought back in time. He's never seen in the film visually outside of on a tape. And they use the girl. They don't show the ceremony at all. They're like, it's done. He's got a human body now. And Toby, with an I, Tobi, who would have thought, first time credited in the actual fucking movie, he's got a human form now. He's just a guy. You don't see his face or anything. You just see his human legs with some weird misty stuff coming from it, and his hand. He kills the mother, takes the daughter, and that's the end of it. So this is definitely a finality. Realistically, I, as you saw in the previous clip, had expected that this wouldn't have finality. That they were trying to do something either fresh or new or different, and I thought that's why people hated it. But it's like, no, they fucking end it. They're like, we don't want to keep making the same narrative that doesn't end, so we're going to end it. And somehow people don't like that. They're like, oh, it's the same stupid stuff of a bunch of, white people who are well off to have a big expensive house, and they just film all the demon stuff. They don't do anything about it. They just look at the footage from the 80s. They're like, hey, this cult stuff, there's a lot of mystery here. Let's just take a couple days to really analyze the footage, and in the meantime, our daughter's going to get possessed by a demon or something, and people are going to get seriously hurt, and all kinds of stuff. So it's still got this silly stuff, stupid jump scares, whatever. I think the jump scares are what makes me dislike the franchise, realistically, because it's all the same stuff. Because the lore and everything is really interesting. Having this coven of women who just do this stuff, it's still very thinly thought out. Like, what was the point of the marked ones if they're raising kids who are hanging out with Toby only for them to eventually get possessed by demons, but not Toby. But then this one, they're like, oh, we're going to use two kids, one who's Hunter, who's already been established, and this new girl, to then use their blood to create, in a sacrificial thing or some bullshit, to give Toby a human form in the 80s. So, I don't know. It's the interesting stuff is that they keep doing this new stuff. Look, here's what the demon looks like. Here's this interesting new visual angle. Here's this new narrative thing that we're actually going to conclude to make Toby a real thing. You're going to get more visual expression of the demon instead of just cheap, low-budget stuff. So it has a bit of... The new stuff is interesting. The old stuff is cheesy. There's no real middle ground. So where I feel like realistically, I, as someone who loves to see something different and new in each film, really like this film, I also equally dislike it. Because as much as I like that they're like, hey, here's the demon, here's the creepy stuff, oh no, the demon's sprouting weird venom-like tentacles, gonna attack people, it gains a more humanistic form as it goes along, but all the jump scares are still very predictable and stupid. The characters are underdeveloped and fucking hardly have any character to them. Visually, it's mostly just handheld camcorder stuff and occasionally modern camcorder stuff. And then at nighttime, night 1, night 2, there's like 5 or 6 nights in this film before it all goes to hell. It just narratively, when you think of the whole franchise, at least till this point, is like, what's the point of half of this shit if this is what they're going for? Like, raising Hunter makes sense if it connects to this, and raising this girl makes sense if it connects to this. But what's the point of the previous film then, the marked ones? What's the point of having those kids be raised to the age of 18 and then they get possessed by a demon, and then they, I guess, become, entity bodies for the demon? I think that's kind of like its own thing. The Coven are doing that, like, oh, we're going to sacrifice our firstborn sons to get possessed by demons at the age of 18 so we can be rich and whatever. I don't fucking know. Most of the time with them being rich is just my assumption, but that's the way I've had to assume it. But then it's like, I don't know, is it long life? Is it something like that? I don't know, because like Katie's fucking grandma is dead by the first film, so I don't know. There's definitely interesting stuff in there. I think it's going for that aspect of, because of the marked ones, they're emphasizing, oh, these males, firstborn males, when they hit the age of 18, become vessels for demons. But not Toby. Toby is a different kind of demon that is like a proper, if there was like a hierarchy, higher up there. And they need to use the firstborn of this family, who's like Katie's family, the main family, her, sister's firstborn son, Hunter, they need to use his blood and the blood of this other random girl, because, again, we've never seen these characters before. There's been no setup for it, despite the fact that it's clear that in the narrative of this film that the Covenanters put these people together in this house. It's all there deliberately. And it's like, so they've just bred this girl, almost this completely random girl that had no connection to any previous Coven stuff, so that she can use a bit of her blood and a bit of Hunter's blood to make Toby into a real thing. That's where it starts to disconnect for me, because I'm like, that's a bit too much of a stretch. Like, I can understand them raising the boys to be 18 and then they become like vessels for demons. That's fine. The Toby stuff is just for shits and gigs, I guess. Like, what's the point of Toby fucking around with the family if it can literally give them the choice? Or is it just like Toby's like, these families are too fucking busy filming me to bother actually getting the fuck out, And this is more like Poltergeist in this one, where there's a lot more, possessed toys and stuff like that. She's at the mirror one stage talking to herself, and there's like a crack on the mirror. There's all these different elements that feel very much more like Poltergeist. And it's just confusing that this is where it ends up. Like, is why this girl, like, is none of it's really... It doesn't feel emphasized enough that this girl is that important. Like, she just feels like a random girl who they were just like, oh, we're just going to select this family to live in this household because... Okay, I've answered my own question, I realize. Because she was born on the same day. That's it. That's literally it. It's like a one-line thing, which, again, I already mentioned before. Her and Hunter, born on the same day. It's part of the ritual. They had to have 2 kids born on the same day. The 6 or the 606. Was it the 6th of June 2006? They had to have 2 kids born on the 6th of June 2006, the 666 thing, the omen, to then combine their blood, because it's the blood of 2 innocents born on this day, even though I'm trying to remember if they actually emphasize that the kids have to be a certain age, because they don't emphasize that, because again, they could have waited for the kids to be 18. I don't know. They don't emphasize it. And that's their blood. Well, it's the blood of them when they're innocent. So innocent would be that they're kids. And yeah, but I guess it also needs to be they have to have enough experience with Toby, need to be friends with Toby, all this kind of stuff. So they didn't move into the house till before. I don't think they had the kid wasn't born until after they moved into the house, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong in saying that. Because they did have a videotape showing that the Coven had designed the house, had burnt down the old one, designed this from the scratch up, and sold it to the family. But the family couldn't get in contact with the people who they bought it from. So either way, it's not really plot holes, it's just so many minor details. And to be fair, again, I've still watched the extended cut. I don't know how much of this is mentioned in the theatrical version, because, like, this is so much plot stuff. But, yeah. I'm still probably leaning towards the 3-star thing, because I didn't find it as enjoyable as the third film or the marked ones. It's very on par with the first and second, even though I think the first and second are a bit more, contained. And that's probably better for them, because again, it's going for that, like with the original film, it's going for the cheap, low-budget, jump scare fest thing, and this one is so far removed from that, whilst also still holding on to those details, but also being like, yeah, we got to have a narrative, we got to finish this shit, They're still cheaply made, they're still easily produced, and they still make a lot of money at the box office. I think they obviously realized diminishing returns, and I mean, they had critically diminished returns throughout the whole series, so it didn't really matter about that. I can't imagine making the Paranormal Activity films and thinking, hey, the critics didn't like this one, let's change it up a notch, because nobody fucking cares. So, as long as it makes money, what does it care? What does it matter? People are going there, unfortunately, by this stage in the series, for jump scares, to be scared in the cinema. And it seems like most of the people, especially by the time this came out in 2015, didn't care anymore. They're watching this and like, it doesn't have the impact that the original, 6 films did, and the original 5 films did, and it's going too much for plot over anything else. Like, this is exactly what I love about a franchise like this, where it goes into, yes, we're going to have plot, we're going to have lore, we're going to wrap this shit up. You know, they've established enough lore in the third film and the fifth film, hardly any in the fourth film, only to wrap it all up here, and I think it works really well, you know? So those stuff I really like, but if you're after this series for being demons and jump scares and invisible things and moving stuff, and people getting dragged downstairs, you don't get that in this one. Like, there's still invisible things, but the invisible things are only through one camera. Through the other camera, it's a blobby thingy, which I think is still very stupid. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's a pulled off of... Like, it looks fine visually, but it just seems stupid that it's like, why does it look like that? what kind of design choice is that? So, yeah, I can't say it's great, but I'd probably give it maybe 3 stars. It's interesting enough, scary enough, good enough for its spooky effects. I watched the alternate ending as well, which is an extended cut with an alternate ending, and the alternate ending fucking sucks. It's on Wikipedia. It's just they banish the demon, and then the mum gets pregnant with potentially a boy, and that's it. Potentially have a final film, like another film. It's like, nope, fuck it. We're just gonna have Toby become real, and that's the end of the movie. And I guess maybe the apocalypse. That's crazy how these films were like, oh, 2 people, a couple, filming in their bedroom. Look at this. There's a ghost. 7 years later, they've caused the apocalypse. Whoop-de-fucking-do. So, yeah, let's see what Next of Kin is like, and if I think that this series is worthwhile in the end. Paranormal Activity Next of Kin is the final film in the franchise, and is more of a, I'd say, kind of a offshoot reboot thing. It doesn't stipulate any kind of continuity with the rest of the franchise, even like filming wise, outside of it still being a found footage film, because they're filming a documentary about this girl's family who were Amish, and she was adopted while after being left at a hospital when she was born. And so, you know, they go and investigate whatever, try to learn about her family, and it just kind of unravels from there that there's something a bit sus about it. It's the kind of film where, if you've seen Wicker Man, or most recently Ari Aster's Midsommar, it's basically that, but worse. I still think the film itself is fine as its own film. It works nicely. It has a, you know, well-rounded film, nice, interesting characters, an interesting, creepy atmosphere, a good production design. It's surprisingly well made, especially in contrast to the rest of the franchise. It's so second cousin to them that it kind of doesn't really feel like a Paranormal Activity film, despite having the name Paranormal Activity. To a degree, it feels like it shouldn't, and it feels like it was slapped on, almost a Cloverfield kind of thing. The people who worked on this did work on... Yeah, Christopher Landon did write it. It says based on the film Paranormal Activity, so maybe they needed to credit that just to make it seem more like it's actually like the Paranormal Activity films of yonder. But it doesn't feel like it. Obviously, it has more modern filming techniques and whatever. They have drone shots, they have a camera guy with a boom stuff and everything. Like, they're very obvious and open about the fact that it's a 3-person crew and they're trying to do a documentary. A bad job at a documentary, but, you know. I knew to some degree that there was demon stuff in this film. There wasn't going to be as much Paranormal Activity like there is in the rest of the franchise, and that to some degree there was a demon and it might have been Toby. I didn't hear any reference in the film that the demon was called Toby, so I don't think it's the same fucking reference. I think it's just a different demon because they say it's Asmodeus, and they're literally like, this is what Asmodeus does. So it's very cut dry into everything that it's going for. There's still some creepiness to it. There's still some kind of invisible demonic force that's present in one of the scenes. 2 of them, actually. One of them in particular is quite reference-heavy, homage-y to the original Paranormal Activity film. A girl's in the bedroom. She's got the camera filming because she hears noises. The door keeps opening and closing by itself. Her friends are fast asleep and they won't wake up, and then the demon attacks her. You can even see it like she's got like a singlet on, and you can see it grabbing her from the side, like indents into his skin. She gets thrown up into the roof, and then it cuts to the next day. Maybe that's the most terrifying scene in the film. I don't know. There's also 2-headed goats. There's a bunch of weird shit. The last 10-15 minutes of most of these movies where shit really gets, like, punchy. And I think this one kind of works well enough. Like, it all just happens in one night. It's all crazy shit. It becomes a lot of crazy shit. And they even end on a really interesting final, like, scene that I think is kind of nicely poetic. If the Wicker Man wasn't burnt alive kind of deal. If in Midsommar, well, there's no demons in that film. So, nevertheless, I don't want to spoil the narrative, but it's a very interesting ending for itself, and I like how it just does something different to the rest of the series. It feels unique. It feels vastly different. Again, it doesn't feel like it needs to have the name Paranormal Activity outside of maybe if you go for anthology kind of thing, or it's a different universe, or it's got no relation to the other films, or in this universe there's just a bunch of demons because you can just contact hell or whatever, which seems appropriate. Marked ones kind of established that there seem to be multiple demons or demonic entities, where the main one was Toby. There are other ones. Asmodeus doesn't seem to have the same kind of style as Toby, but also Toby exists by the end of the previous film as a human form. And by this one, it's 2021, pandemic has happened, they've clearly wearing face masks, and yet there is no sign that that demon has ever stepped foot in this fucking realm. So it's really hard to say if you can even pin this as an actual sequel. But at the same time, if you're going to go for a found footage film that has demonic stuff, it still is in the same banks. So I don't discredit it, and having a Blu-ray release is nice comparing to the fact that it basically went straight to streaming, thanks Paramount Plus. Nevertheless, I think it's a good film. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think it's entertaining for its own right. It's still got your cliche, scare drops, but it doesn't go with the same kind of style and habits that the previous films had. You don't get weird shit coming out of the camera. You do get occasional people popping up and jump scares, or people looking around at night with the night vision on. For the most part, it just embodies this creepy feeling throughout most of the film once they actually arrive on the farm. And it's very kind of cliche with how they eventually be like, hey, they get out of the farm, finally get internet. Oh, something seems sus. Let's Google it. Let's Google some things that we've learned, see what's what. A lot of the twists are pretty predictable. It seems very easily set up. It does have a variety of monsters to some degree, visible and non-visible, so I'll give it that. It does actually go for a different route, and I appreciate that. But love it or hate it, it's probably like the most film-like of all of these in terms of just the quality of its actual filmmaking. So I'll give it that. But what do I think of the franchise as a whole? Do I have my phone? Yes, I do. My ranked list. How would I rank them? Oh, that's a really good question, May. Thanks for asking. Let's see. I think I would pin it down to... Oh, I can't... Oh, that's annoying. I would say that the fourth one is my least favorite. That's the one I gave 2 stars. It's the least inventive, and despite the fact that it has the Kinect Xbox stuff, which is hilarious, the rest of the film is too cheap and obvious. I'd probably follow that with... Oh, it's tough. I feel like I would follow with the Ghost Dimension, but... yeah, I think... Maybe the Ghost Dimension, and then Next of Kin, and then 1, 2, 3, and the Marked Ones. The Marked Ones, I think, is the best one. It's the most inventive. It's the most interesting. If not for Next of Kin, it would be like... That would be the most, outlier one. It does not abide by the formula of setting up cameras in your house and getting jump scared by ghosts. And... It has interesting characters, the time travel stuff is great, the scares are pretty decent, it has fewer of them, but I think that's more effective than just constantly waiting for the timer to count up past 3 a.m. for a jump scare. I'd put the third one after that because it's the most interesting usage of what has come out of that exact formula. I think it's the most fun. The girls are really fun to watch, they're creepy, the parents are interesting enough. You have realistic characters where they're like, oh, there's demons here, I'm leaving. The multiple camera angles, the way that they set up the pan and scan gives you some great setups and payoffs. The first and second one are very on par with each other. To a degree, same with the Ghost Dimension, because again, they're all the same style of narrative. and Next of Kin. I don't even remember what my list was. I'm just looking at the fucking thing on Letterboxd and thinking, I don't know. The first one's iconic. The second one, I think, has better utilized scares, and just seems a bit more interesting, and the characters are a bit less annoying, and I do like Ali. Again, the third one is the best of those three. The fourth one I just don't really enjoy. I find it really cliche and boring. The fifth one is the most inventive and really interesting, has a great ending to it. The sixth one, the Ghost Dimension, is just... I enjoy the Ghost Dimension. I don't hate it like a lot of other people do. I still think it's very gimmicky. I've obviously had my whole say on it. But again, I'm wanting new stuff from the franchise, and this gives you more deeper lore, and it wraps up the series well enough in my book. So I'm pretty happy with it, but obviously there could have been another final one. So to say Next of Kin is the final one to wrap it up, I think is not accurate. It does its own thing, but it's enjoyable, and you can watch it as its own thing. Like, I might even suggest it to my brother and his partners, just be like, hey, if you guys want to watch a creepy found footage film, here's the Next of Kin film, which they have not seen yet. And I think that they would enjoy it. Yeah. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the Paranormal Activity films. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think that these films are gimmicky, cheap schlock? Or do you actually find them to be really interesting, like, fun, jump-scary films? You watch them with friends for the, ooh, my popcorn went everywhere. Or do you just want to not sleep for, like, a week and a half? Because, that's great. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you kids next time. I'm gonna glue my eyes open and hopefully never encounter one of these fucking demons. Bye.